Welcome to the Inspired by Jacqueline podcast, a refreshing place for women struggling with entrepreneurship, faith, or infertility. Stay tuned for today's episode. Hey everyone, here I am with another episode, amazing episode of Inspired by Jacqueline podcast. And yes, I do have an amazing guest on, and her name is Lynette Barbieri. So Lynette is with us, and I'm really excited because we're going to talk about a lot of important topics that is usually not discussed as much, and it should be. And I felt that it was an urgent need to have her here in this platform. Lynette is a financial coach, and that's the part we're going to be talking about a little bit more. And she is the business development director for Bella Magazine Media and Co. She is also the co-founder of ETTWomen. So with that said, welcome Lynette. And anything else you want to add to that?
Nope, that's good for now. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so excited to start this conversation and just chat in reference to on all things entrepreneurship struggles, right? And finances. But first, let me ask you, how did you get into entrepreneurship? And give me a little snippet of that.
Well, when I was in high school, my dad, as a white collar worker, worked in New York City for Sterling Drugs. And he always used to say, I wish I had my own business. I wish I had my own business. And he started, when I got older, towards the end of high school, he started a little store and sold bedding and linens and stuff like that. And he would do it on the weekends and work his job during the week. And he would always, say, I wish I could just leave my job and focus on my business. And never happened. He had an early retirement, and he did go into real estate though and work for himself for many, many years. So that was awesome because he loved not being 9 to 5 anymore. But so when I was in school, I really was interested in becoming a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And I wasn't very interested in school. So I found out how long that was going to take. And I said, that's not for me. It's not for me. So when I went to graduate school, my dad was, you always got the, you're so smart, you don't apply yourself speech. And if you do something, I'll pay for it, but I would like you to, do something and get a job. So I went to school to be a medical assistant because I saw a sign one day, and I worked for a doctor. And as a young girl for a while, I worked 6 days a week, 2 different doctors. I couldn't be around sick people. I mean, I was doing something that made me unhappy, but I did it because I was young and I could work, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I bought my own car and I was really proud of myself, but I was miserable. And I just decided I could not work for anybody. It wasn't me. It wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. And my husband, I met him when I was 21. And he wanted to open a pizzeria in the city because he worked for a famous one in Brooklyn for many, many years, which is where I met him. And he said, why don't you come and work the business with me? You don't have to work for anybody. It's our business. And I did that. And that was grueling. It was in the Village in Manhattan. It was, 10-hour days, sometimes 12 hours, 6 days a week. And then we had a deli in Brooklyn after that. And then we decided we had kids, we bought a home, and we wanted to do something that wasn't so crazy time consuming. We sold the business, and we had a credit repair business. And we had gotten a phone call from somebody who had said, I have a financial service business. I can come over and take a look at, what you're doing. We believe that everybody needs a financial game plan, and we could show you how you could, start your own business. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. And, I hung up. They called back again, and my husband answered the phone. He goes, how much money could you make? And she said, how much money do you want to make? He goes, okay, come over. So they wound up sitting with us, coming to talk with us. And we realized that we were doing 100 things wrong. And if I was doing all these things wrong, so was my sister and my sister-in-law and my best friends. We were all in the same age group, all buying homes, all having children at the same time. So she decided to teach us how we could do it on a part-time basis and build it to a business and sell our deli. And 25 years later, that's what I do. So I have not worked for anyone since I'm 21.
Wow, that's amazing. I went to college, and I had when I was going to college, I actually took the post office exam, and I aced it. And they called me right before graduation. I was like, no, no, no. And I'm thinking back, I was like, I would have been retired and I could have been doing a whole different other things. But then again, I wouldn't have had the experience that I've had.
And you wouldn't
But
be the same person because it's
and I
just a
wouldn't be the
different.
same person,
No.
right? So I am thankful for everything, just like I'm sure that you took everything you learned and applied it. And I'm glad that you shared something in reference to applying yourself, because when I was in college and I was not doing that well in accounting because I went to school for accounting, and my teacher, instead of saying, oh, let me help you because you're not doing that well, or, go get a tutor. No, she's like, I think you need to change your major completely.
Oh,
And
wow.
you need to drop this class ASAP. I'm like,
Oh,
wow. And I had this thing that, I always knew accounting was not for me 100%. I always knew I didn't want to take the CPA because I felt like something else was coming in my
right.
life. And
Right.
when she told me that, I went home, and I don't know if I don't want to say you're around my age, but Family Ties. Do you remember Family
Yes,
Ties?
I do.
So Alex and Mallory, right? And Mallory wasn't always the smart one. And
Yep.
there was an episode where she was about to graduate and she was so frustrated because she needed to pass a class. And Alex, he always used to bother her, but this time it was very, very on point where he's like, all you have to do is apply yourself. And I took those words to heart, and I take it to heart every single thing that I do. And I
Me
applied
too.
myself, and I passed the class with a B plus, and my overall average was B plus. And
Awesome.
so I made it. I graduated. I have my accounting degree, but I always still felt like there was something more. And for me, it took me a little longer than you to get there, but life's journey just got me to the role of being an entrepreneur.
Right.
With that said, you found your road to entrepreneurship.
If any,
But
right.
what struggles do you feel is sometimes overlooked?
Oh boy, there are so many. And there's so many struggles as an entrepreneur, but it's a trade-off. I always tell people there's struggles, but is there not struggles when you're employed? Sometimes
Mhm.
there's bad relationships, or you're underpaid, or you're not treated well. There's so many trade-offs. I wouldn't trade it for the world to have anybody tell me what to do, or when I could take off, or if somebody's sick, I can't drop everything, or if my kids have a play, I can't go watch it. Like, I can't even
Mm,
fathom that. So the struggles were real, but to me it was just things that you had to work through. It's all about how you perceive things, right? So if you
mhm,
perceive something as a real struggle and that it's really hard, you make it that way. But if you perceive it as a challenge that you have to work through to get to where you need to go and to be able to do what you're currently doing and what you love to do with your family, you have to get through it. So, time management is always a struggle for an entrepreneur because they're not 9 to 5 and they don't know what to do. So I think that they all have to have a mentor, because
mm,
time management and setting your schedule and working your schedule and working your business like a job, meaning you have to show up and work the hours that you're supposed to work. I mean, those are all a challenge that people have to get used to. I worked long hours anyway before that.
mm,
So that wasn't a challenge to me. Family becomes a challenge. You have to, try to balance it all out. And there is no balance, and that's okay. You just have to,
yeah.
incorporate your family into your life and work around that. Women, I don't want to say women more than men, but it is true. Women more than men financially struggle a little bit more because they're not used to taking care of their own finances in most cases. A lot of them, if they're married, they'll write the checks, they pay the bills and stuff like that. But if you ask them real questions, how much does your husband have in his 401k? How much do you have? What age could you retire? How much do you need to retire on that you won't outlive your money? They don't have answers to those questions. And we work really, really hard for our money. And we need to know the basic fundamentals, because if we don't, you're not setting yourself up for success. You're not setting yourself up for financial security. So we work hard, and a lot of women spin their wheels and they spend money in the wrong places. And a lot of their businesses fail because they see social media now as being more important in their branding and
Mhm.
advertising and everything else, aside from looking at their money, because they figure I don't have any. Well, you have to have a roadmap to your future. So how much do you make every day? What do you spend money on? You have to be writing everything down. So I think financial struggle is a big one if you don't pay
Mm.
attention to that in the very beginning. When I got started with my husband in the financial services industry, luckily that was the industry I got into. So
Right.
I learned it from then. And that's why I became passionate about educating other people, because I know what people don't know because I didn't know it. So I'm
Mhm.
very passionate about making sure, especially, entrepreneurs know what they should know about money. So at least the other challenges that you face, you could face those, but at least you're stable and you have a foundation.
So you hit on two prime things. And I'm glad that you say there is no balance, no such thing as true balance. And the balance basically is it'll be different every day, right? Like one
Yeah.
day would be 40% business, 60% family. And then the next day could be 75% business and 25% family. And it's that constant understanding where you're at and really tuning into that foundation that you want to build, and knowing that if you have a family, you have a partner, you have, other things other than a business going on, that you have to find the essence of what's important, right?
Right.
And moving ahead with, if you want one thing, it's a give to get, right?
Right.
And
Right.
knowing what's important and sticking with that, because
Right.
sometimes we know that family is important, but then we get so drained and intertwined with the business aspects of working in the business that
Yep.
we lose track of the family piece.
Yep. 100%. And I learned this early on when I was really in the thick of it, and I was exhausted because by the time
Yeah.
I would spend time with my family, I was so tired, and I talked to people all day. I didn't really want to talk. So me and my husband weren't having conversations, and I wasn't playing with my kids. I was
Mm.
putting on movies and, giving them Game Boy and things like that to play with, showing my age. I It's quality time that you spend, not
Yes.
quantity. You don't have to spend every waking minute with your children or your spouse or your family or your friends. You have to have quality time when you do spend it with them, though. So you have to be in it. You have to learn how to shut down, which took me a long time. And like we just spoke before, I'm going away, you're going away. You just said
Mhm.
no phones. I said, I just want to sit on the deck with a glass of wine and watch the sunset and not talk to anybody. Self-care wasn't really spoken of when
Oh
I started
yes.
my business, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
self-care is so important now. And you know 12 years ago when I met Vanessa, who's my business partner in ETTWomen, she was in this circle and a group of women who talked a lot about self-care. This one woman, Dixie Lincoln Nichols, who's a good friend of ours, promoted it, talked about it, and spoke about it, and wrote about it. And she would talk to us about it, and I'm like, wow, I have not done this. Like Saturday ran into Sundays for me,
Hmm.
and I just really wasn't protecting myself from my time, and I got mono really bad back then in the at that time, and I was run down to the ground where I had a fever, and nobody noticed I was sick that much because it was right at the end of November and it went into December to January. So nobody noticed I was missing as much because everybody's kind of missing, and I just didn't show up to parties and
Mm.
things. But I would fall on the sleep on the couch with my coat and my boots on every day. I really thought that I was dying, like there was something really
Wow.
wrong with me. And my doctor said, this affects your organs. So if you don't rest, you'll have other health issues. And if you ever get tired like this again, you can't push yourself anymore because it comes
Wow.
back. And I've always thought about that. And, COVID helped even more, even though COVID was a horrible thing. It also helped me realize I had FOMO, fear of missing out all the time. No, there's no more fear of missing out. It's okay not to be everywhere. It's okay not to talk to
Exactly.
everybody. So self-care is a big part of, to me, entrepreneurship that people should start from right now
Yeah.
not later like I did. Take care of yourself from
Mm.
the beginning, because if there's no water in the well, you're not going to
There's
survive
nothing to
anyway.
give.
There's
Yeah, it's
nothing to
dry.
give. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's dry. And I'm glad you shared that, because when I first started as an entrepreneur, one of the things that was constantly coming up was that networking, right? And networking
Yes.
is good, and we'll elaborate on that. But in sharing my piece to that, I was told, you have to be out there, you have to be out there, you have to be out there. And I was out there. It was
Me
like,
too. Me too.
in event after event after event.
Yep.
And after a while, I was just so drained out. I was in one networking event for one group, another group, and it was good. But then it became so much that I was doing. And then I was on a board of directors for a local chamber of commerce, try to be everywhere at the same time. And I came to like a complete shutdown because I was so overwhelmed with everything that I was doing, and plus running the business, right? And so I came to a point that I was like, what am I doing? I have to take a step back. And one thing good that came out of it was that it taught me how to network, build
Right.
relationships. But what I also learned out of it was what type of networking I didn't want. I
Right.
didn't want, me personally, I did not want to go to a networking event at a bar and have drinks, because I didn't think that was a good time investment. And I was getting back the valuable content or connection that I wanted. I wanted to go to a networking event that had some kind of content or training aspect to it, and a connection and a
Right.
conversation mode, not just, oh, let's go to an after party or a drink or whatnot and network.
Yep.
And sometimes that gets, it depends who it is, it gets carried away, right? And it was becoming a waste of my time. So I was able to identify what type of networking I wanted to continue going to, and my time investment, and
Right.
when and how many times I was going to do it. And I was able to then, after 8 years, identify all those aspects. And now I feel so much better in that I don't have to be everywhere. I can still connect with people, I can still build that relationship. And it's finding those quality relationships and then growing from there. So if you can share from your perspective, networking and being a business owner.
I have so much to say about that. We don't have enough time for it. But I will say that exactly what you said is exactly what I did when I got into this business, my financial business. I had to meet people. People don't knock at your door and say, "Oh, you could help me with
Yeah.
my money." Like, never happens. And I didn't, even though I had my own businesses before, they would come to us. It was a store, it was a deli, it was
Mm-hmm.
a pizza place. I had to go out and find people. So I'm more of a natural people person than my husband. So he would take the computer, the paperwork side, helping our agents with learning and licensing and things like that. And I would be like, get out there and go talk to people, put on some lipstick, smile, and look cute.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go to all different networking groups, pick up business cards. In the beginning, my main thing was picking up business cards, smiling, and asking people about them, because the more I asked them about them, the more I wouldn't have to talk. And because I was very nervous, and I would take the business cards home, and the people that I had a connection with, that I felt comfortable with, that there might be a synergy there, I would call them and say, hey, you know what, Jacqueline, it was great meeting you the other night. And what you do sounds really interesting. I would love to get to know more about your
Mm-hmm.
business and see if we could work together, see if there's a synergy. You want to meet for a coffee at Panera, and I used to do that. And then that was my building the warm relationship. People don't do business with
Yes,
you unless they know, like, and trust you. So
exactly.
aside from running all over the place and doing all those things, and I had a networking group, I had 50 people showing. After a couple of years, I decided to do my own thing. I had 50 people showing up. But at that time, my kids were younger, and I was doing sports, and have 3 kids, and I was smaller one home in sports and a business. My office was 3 miles away. It was hard to keep up. So I let that go. I met Vanessa 12 years ago, and right before I met her, there was something called meetup.com I found out about by accident. I didn't know about it. And I said, well, let me check out this meetup.com thing. And I went on there and I said, oh, I could put the name of my networking group and I can meet people right in this office on a Friday when
Yeah.
I'm here anyway. Let's see how it goes. So I was playing on the computer that day and I was looking for different events, recruiting events. I was looking for agents, and I had seen entrepreneurial think tank, and there was
Mm-hmm.
some think tank. I said, oh, I like that. So I wrote it down. That's how I get all my ideas. I scroll the internet. So I called it Entrepreneurial Think Tank for Moms, or
Mm-hmm.
Freehold Entrepreneurial Think Tank for Moms, something like that. And I posted it on the computer, and I don't even remember what the mission statement was. I made it up, and I had two people call me. One was a chiropractor, and it was a man, and he asked if he could come, and I said, of course. And then one was the local newspaper. There's like 7 papers that go out
Wow.
to different towns. And they said, I really like what you wrote. It sounds interesting. I would love to come and cover it. So I said, well, I just started. I don't know how many people are going to show up. It was also like the summer, which is a really hard time to do
Wow.
anything,
Yeah.
right? I don't know what I was thinking. I was bored, actually. So I said, you could come. I go, I'm having a women in money thing in like 3 weeks, and I should have 40 women here. Why don't you come to that? Nope, I want to come. And I really wanted her to come to that and cover it, right? She goes, no, 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 I want to come to this. I said, okay, but I just can't promise you how many people are going to be here. So she came, and I can't remember how many people were there. There might have been 8 people. And she took a lot of pictures, wasn't really friendly. I never spoke to that person again, by the way. Like a week later, I see the local paper delivered to my house, and I'm on the cover. And I'm like, oh my God. She never said anything like that. And believe me, I was in finance. I didn't do pictures. I didn't post things. I didn't
You
do
were behind the
Facebook
scenes.
yet. I was behind the scenes, and I'm like, oh my God. And I hated the picture, of course. And so I get a phone call from somebody that says, hey, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I saw your picture in the paper. My husband left the paper in the bathroom. Now I'm cringing because somebody saw my picture. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm crazy too. That's okay. So it wound up being Vanessa, and we talked a couple times before she came in, and she came in and we both spoke about the same thing you did, that we want to network and we want to meet people, but we both want to give back. We want to give
Yeah.
back and help women, because at this time I've already been in the business over a decade. And I said, we want to help women. So what we wanted to do was, meet people, but have a purpose,
Mm.
and we wanted to show people how network working really worked. So we went to a lot of local networking groups, whatever was around the area, and there wasn't that many. And we did it, within an hour radius. We started going to networking groups in New Jersey. And exactly what you said happened. It was all about cocktails or women that never got out. And this was their thing to say they're networking, and they wanted to have
Mm-hmm.
drinks and party. I didn't want to spend the money on drinks and food everywhere I went. I had
Right.
kids and a business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, every, couple times a week we're going out, we're leaving our family, and then we're spending all this money.
Yeah.
People hitting on us who wanted to meet me. And I said, oh, a man accountant one time, why don't you come to the office, meet with me and my husband? He asked me to go to dinner and meet with him. And then he never called me when I said, come to the office with my husband. It was like a creepy, you know,
Yeah.
or people would put their business card down and go, here's my card. I just want to say hi, and walk away. Why would I call you? I hardly saw what you looked like. You threw your car. So we would like learn all these things that we didn't like about
Yeah.
networking groups, and we would take it back. And our main goal was always to teach people to network with intention. Pick and choose where you're going to go is in alignment with you and your goals. Is there a
Mm.
way that you think that you're going to benefit from the event you're going to? Go there with a purpose. When I went somewhere and we picked an event, we said, we had a conference coming up. I want to meet people just to invite to my conference. I want to get at least 5 new people. If I met somebody at this place, oh, this woman runs it, I would like to meet her because she's a woman of influence and she could
Mm-hmm.
introduce us to other women. So you have to network with intention. You have to have a purpose. What's the reason why you want to go to this event in the first place? And then teach people what to do with that. Like the more people go and meet people, what do you do with that afterwards? I followed up and met people for coffee. I could tell you people who get hundreds and hundreds of names to this day. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have any appointments or anybody to call? You have 300 names. You're part of this business and this chamber and that
Mm-hmm.
event. How could you not get business? Because they don't know how. They don't know how to
Right.
follow up, and everything is in your follow up. You will waste all your time if you don't follow up, and you have to follow up within 72 hours because
Right.
people won't even remember you after that. They start
Yeah.
to forget you as soon as they go home. So within 72 hours, I want people to know I was the person. Oh, remember I had the hot pink coat on. Vanessa always said too, make yourself memorable. We wear bright colors or solid colors, or make yourself
Mhm.
memorable so there's a reason that people will remember speaking with you. You ask people more about them than they ask about you, because they're going to remember that you listen to them,
Yeah.
and you're going to be that person. So we started networking with intention and teaching people how to do the same thing. And then the business component, like you said, I want to go somewhere where I learn something. I never went to any of these things and learned anything. There was never anybody there that would teach us anything that I learned in my business journey. Vanessa did vision boards. I did vision boards. We didn't,
Mhm.
we both said, well, we both did, and nobody we talked to does. She journaled. I never journaled, but she journaled. Nobody journaled. So we started doing vision board classes, and then we started talking about basics of social media. I didn't know social media. So how do you think that other women my age know social media in the business? They didn't. So we started teaching social media classes. I did 101 on finance classes. And that's how we grew our business, because we wanted to know about things that people were wanting out there that they weren't getting by experiencing it. So
Mhm.
networking, the reason why I'm spending time on this is networking is a huge
Yep.
component of your business. If you're not prospecting and you're not meeting people, and you're not, I call it friendship farming. You're at a
Mhm.
barbecue, you're friendship farming. You're at
Yep.
a wedding, you're friendship farming. I'm on vacation in Florida, I'm friendship farming. I went to Miami with my daughter last year. I met people for the magazine. I
Mm.
always go out with a purpose, even if I'm on vacation and I'm not answering phones or the computer, because that's how I make money. If I don't talk, that's money. Somebody
Exactly.
else has to do something else. But when I owned the deli, I used to use this analogy to myself, and I have the sign over my desk. It says, if it is to be, it's up to me. If I didn't put the key in the door and open it, we didn't make any money. The store had to
Yeah.
open. Well, your business doesn't make any money if you don't put the key in the
Exactly.
door and open it. So networking, prospecting, friendship farming, that's 90% of your business, and the
Yeah.
rest is all in the follow up. So networking is huge, but don't spread yourself too thin.
Yeah, and like becoming a part of an organization, that local, I think is really great because you're able to connect with your
Yep.
local community. They're able to know who you are. And but going into it with for me, I went into organizations as a member, let's say of a chamber of commerce, etc., not expecting leads. I wanted them
Right.
to know me.
Right. I
And
did
I
that with
wanted
some
them
things too.
Yeah, and I wanted them to, understand what I offer. So every month, the Chamber of Commerce meeting. Hello, I'm Jacqueline Vazquez, name of my company. This is what I do. And there was, as an event planner, I wanted to shift and add a new services offering destination weddings and events. And one holiday Chamber of Commerce meeting that we had, everyone was sharing who they were. The room was packed. And I shared who I was and what I was doing, and that I did destination weddings, etc. And 2 persons later, they got up, they owned a gym, and the female, she said, "Oh, by the way, I need to meet with you, Jacqueline, because we're getting married in California and it's a destination. We need to speak to you." And then they shared who they were. Those are the impacts. And
Yes.
I was hired,
Yes.
and that was the start of my destination experience, doing more and understanding how to get those clients and how
Yes.
to identify your needs and what you want and focus on what you want, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we definitely chatted about a very, very important one. But another important piece to entrepreneurship, which you mentioned earlier on, is finance. That's the
Yes.
biggie, right?
Yes.
Because
In
that's a
life,
biggie.
but yes.
Yeah, in life and in as an entrepreneur, I feel that for me, I came with a background of accounting. So I felt comfortable becoming a business owner. When you don't have that experience, and tell us about the importance of hiring an accountant or a financial advisor, and you, the entrepreneur, also having the basic knowledge of what financial understanding they need.
So the importance of hiring an accountant or a financial coach or a financial representative is crucial because, I just had the roof done on my house. My husband didn't watch YouTube and put the roof on. We just had our whole house painted and our kitchen redone. We didn't go to DIY classes and decide to do it. We hired experts. We could have tried and we could have done it, and God knows what it would look like. So when it comes to financial security or, retirement or people's finances, they decide, I'm going to just do it and wing it. And I don't know if you ever saw the commercial. Somebody asked somebody, how much do you need when you retire? And he said $1 gazillion, because it's a joke, but it's the honest truth. People don't
Yeah.
know that stuff. And how are you supposed to reach a goal if you don't know what that goal is? So if
Mm,
you're going to drive to, I don't know, say California, and you just decided, I'm just going to drive and I'm going to wind up in San Diego. Do you just get in the car and go, or do you have a GPS? I don't go
mm.
anywhere without a GPS because my sense of direction is horrible. So you put your GPS on. So you need a financial GPS. You need a roadmap.
Mm,
Everyone needs one. You need one in business, especially because now, in this world today, you don't get it that much anyway, but there's no pension, there's no 401k, there's nothing, and you're not going to survive on social security if it's even there for young people when they get older, who knows. So you need something. How are you supposed to have something if you don't provide it for yourself? How do you provide something when you don't know what the something is? When somebody wants to lose weight, they have a goal of how much they want to lose. There's we all have goals for something. We should, goals on how much we want to make, goals when we need a promotion, goals of how many weddings you wanted to do a year, things like
mhm.
that. Why don't we have our financial goals written down? And sadly enough, people don't, because they don't want to take time to do that. And people take more time to plan a vacation than they ever do to plan their financial future,
Yeah.
and that's a fact, and that's scary. So you have to have a roadmap. I There's so many different ways that you could get that. And I have an accountant and I do financial services. Taxes are not my expertise. So
Mm,
you need an accountant to do your
yeah.
taxes, period. Like, we don't play with that. We don't play. We hire somebody and we pay them. You need a financial coach to sit down and map out your game plan. Even if you're not making a lot of money now, if
Mhm.
you don't start exercising a little bit a day, then you can never exercise more. You don't just start a class 60 minutes. I would die. You need to
Mm,
do a little bit a day until you could get to that and develop a muscle. With finance, you need to save a little bit, even if it's $100 a month. You need to save a little bit to develop that muscle, because when you make more, you'll up your savings. What happens is people say, I'm going to wait till I get money. I'm going to wait till I have the 7,000 to
yeah.
put in my Roth IRA. No, you don't have to do that. You have to put a little bit away every month that comes out like you've never seen it before. So a budget is really important. If everybody takes out, there are tons of apps now. Googling budget worksheet. I could send a budget worksheet. It's nothing. Just take out a budget worksheet and write down everything that comes in and every single solitary thing that goes out, and start looking at what you spend money on. People will find money. How many Starbucks do we have? The
Mm,
people that I would sit with that were struggling the most ate out way more than I did. I had my coffee pot in my office. We have a refrigerator in the office to this day. I could stop and get Starbucks every morning if I want. I absolutely refuse to spend that money every day. So, look at what you're spending. Take the extra money that you can save and get rid of some of the wants, not the needs, and
mhm.
put that towards your retirement, put that towards your debt. If you could just do that and take one step and get a budget, even before you hire somebody, if you want to, do something on your own, get your budget on your own, then have a financial professional sit and identify. Make sure you find somebody that you identify with. They have to know what your needs are, what are your goals, and how could I help you get there? Not how much money do you have that I could invest? How much insurance could you
Right.
afford? Those are bad questions. It's where are you at? Where do you want to go? Let's take a look at how we could get you there. That's the financial professional that you want. And if you hook up with the right person, they're going to hold your hand and take you through that. And it really doesn't cost you money, but it will save your life. So when
Mhm.
I started repairing my own financial situation, did my own financial game plan, and I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't do that. And if I didn't sit with those people, I had no intention of doing that. We saved
Mm,
money in the top drawer in a paper bag from the store.
mm,
And half of our emergency fund, our fund, we had an emergency fund, and our fund, we went to Atlantic City with friends once a month. And
mm.
and that was our entertainment and fun. You know how much money I wasted on that stuff? So thank God I sat with somebody. Thank God that I knew enough to take this opportunity so I could go and help as many people as possible. And thank God I was open minded to, looking at my own situation. So a financial coach is huge. Financial
Mhm.
professional and accountant is huge. Those are two things I'd never skip. And what was the second
Awesome.
part of your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the second part is and you mentioned a little bit, but until they decide to find somebody or hire somebody, or if actually they hire someone, what are the important basics that an entrepreneur needs to know about finances?
The basics is you have to have a budget. You have to have a business budget and a personal budget. The budget is the first step to everything, because if you don't know what's coming in and what's going out, anybody could teach you anything that they want. I could teach you how much you need to save on a monthly basis, but that's not going to help you.
Right.
Also, you need to know, how much do I have to make a day to save to stay in business? You have to know what that amount is. How much do I really have to make to stay in business? Me and my husband would map out, if we didn't take X amount in monthly, we couldn't sell the deli, because we needed to make up X amount to take that jump full time. What's your
Mhm.
X amount? So you have to know what you have to make in order to be able to stay in business, and you have to have financial goals. You want to definitely know what you have to make to get by, but you don't want to live like that, right? Long term. So
Right.
you want to know, what do I have to do to make X amount more? You have to have financial goals along the way. You always have to assess, what do I need to do to get to those goals, and have an action plan, which, sometimes really helps in business to have a business coach, or go to classes, because people don't really understand that part. And
Mhm.
I didn't understand that part. So I think that's crucial. And then after you do that, I would get a financial roadmap for my business. I would,
Mhm.
because it's important to know. I mean, when you go in business, I didn't want to go into business and try another one and another one and another one. I wanted to have a thriving business, one that I
Right.
owned and I could sell and stay in. That doesn't mean I don't do other things, because I like to. As I get older, I like to keep busy, and I like to do stuff, and my business is stable. And, my schedule gives me the ability to be able to do other things that I want. But I always had a game plan of what I needed, and what I could put away, and what I had. You also have to know if there's grants or things available for you to get money. There's certain things available for certain ethnic groups. There's certain things available for different businesses that you start, and you won't know those things if you don't talk to a professional about it. So, sometimes getting grants are possible. Do you
Mhm.
want a business loan? Do you not want a business loan? There's pros and cons to that. So you really need to sit down and talk to somebody about your goals, so they could give you a good, stable financial plan. And of course, hopefully you have a stable business plan.
And thank you for sharing that. Is creating a business plan something that can help a new entrepreneur understand the business that they want to create and set up those goals as far as getting a loan, whether they get a loan or a grant or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that it's important to have that, because starting your own business is serious. And if you're not going to take it seriously, and it's a hobby, it's a hobby, that's okay. If you want to make a little extra money on the side, and you have something that you like, and it's more of a hobby than it is your bread and butter, you don't need anything like that. If this
Yeah.
is your income, and you're dependent on this to live, then yeah, you should definitely have a business plan, because you want to talk with somebody who's a professional, who helps people. There's even something called SCORE, that the senior citizens will help you with their business. I know Vanessa did this a long time ago, and I've been to some of these SCORE groups. They're free, and they'll sit down and they'll actually talk to you about your business, and
Mhm.
where you're at. But when you go to talk to somebody, know what you want to talk about. You
Exactly.
want to start a business. What is your vision for that business? Go with some.
Purpose.
If you can't go with a purpose and your mission, it's going to be really difficult for them to help you. And I'm not saying you have to know everything at first. They're going to
Right.
help you, and they're going to give you information on
Understand.
what you need to work and understand, but go there with something, and
Yeah.
make sure that it's something that you're serious about and that you want to pursue.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. Thank you. And a little fun question. If you had a choice of a superpower, what would it be?
A superpower. I think my superpower would be never having to sleep, just having, 24-hour energy, so I could do all the things that I want to do in a day. There's so many things that I want to try, that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I can make time for all these things. And sometimes, you just don't have the energy for it, or honestly, obviously we have to sleep. So I think I would be like Superwoman, who never has to sleep, who could go anywhere and do anything, work through the night on her projects, and never have to rest.
I love it. And it's funny that earlier on in the conversation you mentioned something about that by the time you would get home, you were so tired. And I could just imagine, because I know I've done it, be with one eye open, one eye closed, and it's just you're out. You're done.
Yeah, I was answering you last night and I was so tired. And then when I answered you on the computer, you read something back to me. I'm like, I don't even know what I was saying. Sometimes you just get so drained,
Yeah.
and we're pulled in all different directions, and you do get drained. And I do sleep. I mean, I'm a good sleeper. I have enough sleep. I mean, I toss and turn. I think about things like everybody else, but I pretty much, when I want to sleep, I sleep. But
Mm,
it's just, there's just so much, energy in the day, which is self-care too. We have to take better care of ourselves. I know I have to get on a better regime, because when my energy starts running low, it's generally my own fault. So that's my New Year's goal that I'm starting
mhm.
now. I have to start working on my own health in order to be able to have that energy, because nobody's going to give me that superpower,
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately.
Out of our entire conversation, what are two or three things you feel that listeners should take away?
I think that they need to learn about networking with intention and networking
Mm,
the right way, and take a long, hard look at, what they're doing as far as networking goes, or if they're not networking. The budget, I always, when I do training meetings, I say a successful, because people say the meeting was great. Oh my God, I got so much information. Listen, no meeting is successful unless you personally take one thing out of that meeting and implement it. Then it's a successful
mhm,
meeting. And I start my next meeting with, what is the one thing that you did from the last meeting that you used this week, that helped you, or that you had a challenge with? And I'll take 3 people. So, from listening to us, I would say one simple thing is just to start a budget financially. Start
mhm,
a budget worksheet. Business plan. Talk to somebody and start getting in your head what you want your business to look like, your mission, your purpose, your goals. And you could go to a free group. You don't have to pay money. You could look for
mhm.
SCORE, but you could Google other things in your area. There are places that you could go. I would make sure that I got my business plan in check also, because that's huge. So your
Mhm.
networking, your budget sheet, and your business plan would be 3
Awesome.
very key things.
Awesome. Is there something that we didn't touch on that you feel is important to share?
Give yourself a break. When people say, what would you say to your younger self? I would
Mm.
say so many things. But, the one thing I would say to myself when I was in the thick of going through my business part of my life was, give yourself a break. It's okay to take a step back in order to be able to take another step forward. And I had a
Mm,
really hard time taking a step back for years and years. I didn't give myself a break. Why didn't I win this? Why didn't I do that? I have to do this. How come I didn't do this goal faster? This person did it there. Stop comparing yourself with other
mm,
people. You are you, and you're
mm,
going to do things in your own time. And the best you could do is, if you're doing your best, it's the best you can do. If you're slacking and you need help, ask for help. We
mm.
all need help. I didn't ask for enough help. I didn't seek out, I did have coaches, but I had coaches mainly in my business that trained me, and they were mostly were men also. So now they're on a different plane. They're not
Yeah.
taking care of their families. They're just doing what they do, and they expect me to be able to do the same thing, and it's not possible. So get a coach, give yourself a break and stop comparing yourself to other people, because you're never going to be those people.
Awesome. Thank you. And then how can people connect with you?
The best way to connect with me, I'm amazing on Instagram. So at Lynette Barbieri on Instagram, you can send me a message or a DM, follow me. My cell phone is 732-232-1251. I send that to everyone. You can shoot me a text, or you could email me at Lynette@bellamedia.co.
Awesome. And I'll also share that information in the show notes as well. Well, Lynette, thank you. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see you soon, because I attend also the ETTWomen and Bella events as well. And I will say, after chatting about networking and investing time in the specific events you want to go to, I've had an amazing experience in going to Bella events and the ETT Women meeting, and it's just amazing. So I'm really glad that we've connected, and to be a part of everything that you and Vanessa as well are putting together.
Thank you so much. And we are fortunate to have women like you in our lives. That's one of the perks of doing what we do, is meeting and learning from other women like you. So thank you.
Thank you for being with us, and hoping that the listeners did take, because all that you mentioned and we chatted about was very good takeaways. And so thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for the next episode of Inspired by Jacqueline. Take care.